Hello, my name is Barbara Drtina, and I'm the founder and CEO of Wellness Matters, You Matters. And today we are here at the retreat, and my topic is collateral damage of parental alienation and the importance of self care. First of all, I'd like to say that PA is a hard road to navigate, as you certainly must know. There's so many variables to take into consideration, and there is so little awareness. Thank goodness this is beginning to change because our children's lives and their futures are at stake. The one thing that seems to be a common thread is that this is a long haul, and we have to preserve ourselves to see the change and be there for our children. I didn't do that. So, my purpose in presenting today is that you come away with some takeaways to apply to your own family situation. I hope you will see that self care is not selfish or a luxury, it is a necessary component to be effective. I give you permission to do what you need to do to sustain yourself for the long haul. It is my hope that you will learn from my experience. I put this together with some insights, and then I put things not to do, collateral damage, and self care points that you can use. So, insight number one is self care. Put the oxygen mask on. At the beginning, I didn't do this and I didn't take care of myself. I was frantic. My children's lives were in danger, and I was right. They were. I knew time was of the essence, and I burned myself out right away. I couldn't sleep. My mind would not stop trying to figure out what to do and who to call. I was so drained and depleted. It was affecting my health, my clear thinking, and my job. I became depressed and I wasn't available. It was too much for my psyche to bear. I was not myself, and I know that now. So don't do that. It's ineffective. You cannot move the needle forward when you're depleted. I think as parents, we feel guilty for taking care of ourselves. It's important for you and your children to be in the best health physically and emotionally. This is sort of like the Olympics or a long marathon. The collateral damage is our self worth, our loss of self. Things can lead to addiction and illness and job loss, poor performance in our jobs, poor decision making, and not being present for our children. So take moments of self care. I know as a single parent how difficult it was to have time, but make time for yourself every day. It might even just be in the car, a few minutes in your car commuting. You can listen to positive things on YouTube or Audible. You can pray. I kept a rosary in my car. You can do deep breathing in just a couple of breaths. You can scream and yell. You can make up affirmations or record them on your phone. Be sure you have healthy habits of rest, healthy foods. Love yourself, hug yourself, rub lotion on yourself, speak beautiful words into your spirit. Insight number two, isolation. At, this is a real collateral damage of parental alienation. At the time I was in the courts, there was very little awareness of PA. I could see what was happening, but I didn't know how to fix it. I isolated myself. I felt shunned. I was under a microscope. My children were attending a private school, and my former husband had a prominent job. I was afraid of what other people were thinking. I made up stories about it. I felt so alone, and I was alone. There were no support groups then. There was no internet. It hadn't been discovered yet. This is available now, and no matter where you live, you can plug in. But please be discerning. Don't isolate. Plug in. Find other targeted parents. But here is an important caveat. Don't live into victimization. Plug in with people that are positive, caring, understanding, and yes, speak your truth into the light. I know that I spent far too long being a victim, and we are victims, and so are our children. Here is the distinction. Don't make your purpose being a victim. Some group chats or groups stay in the dark zone. It is my experience that this is an unhealthy place to live. If you want change, you have to head toward the light, even if it's in just tiny little micro steps. Remember, you're not just doing this for you, you're doing this for your children. Human beings need connection. We know that more than anything at this time period in our history with a pandemic. I think we're all feeling this with the global pandemic of our time. Collateral damage, loss of friends, loss of relationships, being judged, lack of self-worth, lack of support, poor insight, disorders, addiction. Find people and places and things to do outside of this dark space. No one needs to know what you're going through. Create connections to find other friends that you have a common interest with. Maybe it's cooking, pickleball, walking, yoga. This gets your mind off this issue for a little bit, keeps you centered and interested as a human being. Human connection is vital. And when you refresh your mind into other areas, it gives your psyche time to figure out solutions to our problems. And here is insight number 3. Have faith. Instead of turning away turn towards faith. It's easy to get angry with God. I remember the day when my well had run dry. I was brought to my knees fighting for my rights as a parent. And at that moment, I surrendered. It was then that I knew I had to put on the oxygen mask and take a deep breath so I could continue. This was bigger than me. So I surrendered and I turned it over to God. I remember feeling a huge weight lifted off of me. I had to relinquish my control because I didn't know how to solve this. I remember my prayer at that time. God, I do not know why this is happening to me in my life. You know how much I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom and how long I waited for this. There must be a bigger plan here that I cannot see. Please show me a way to cope with this. I hope everyone can find their faith. I know that this is a faith-based retreat and it is for all faiths. May your core faith shift or grow, mind change, be open. Know that this can be a solid rock for you to rely on. At that time, I was a practicing Catholic, and I am more ecumenical now, but I'm very spiritual, and it is the most important part of my life. I have acceptance because I believe there's a bigger plan at work here, and I will not I will not give up fighting for my children, but I do have an acceptance around that. I did and I do a lot of praying, and I developed a meditation practice that's helped me immensely. Collateral damage is loss, lack of hope, lack of faith, apathy, a feeling of despair and giving up. Self-care is to find a church or a synagogue that is in alignment with your faith. Join a spiritual study group or maybe commune with nature. Learn to meditate. There are so many practices to choose from. I learned centering prayer, which originated in the Catholic Church, and I practice it with a group on a weekly basis. And I suggest being in community. Insight number 4, be discerning. As I mentioned above, please don't isolate, but be discerning in your relationships. My story started in the 90s. There were very few resources back then, and there was not much awareness about parental alienation. There were no cell phones, no internet, no support groups. The only thing I had was Dr. Gardner's book. So at least I knew this was something and I was not crazy, but I couldn't find anyone to believe in me until it was too late. I reached out to other parents, my family, my pastor. They often acted like they understood, but secretly they couldn't grasp it. It's easy to get labeled, shunned, people discounting or dismissing you. Some people just can't imagine another parent doing such a thing. You must have issues. That's why you're being shunned and pushed aside by the other parent. Well-meaning friends can give you bad information. There is so much misunderstanding about this and so much disbelief. Happy, healthy families cannot understand. Therapists, attorneys, judges, they often do not understand, yet they often process that they do. The plan of action in this area is counterintuitive to what most practitioners would normally think. That is why you need a professional who is familiar with parental alienation. Many are not, and you can do a lot of damage to your case. Don't do this. Don't use uninformed attorneys or therapists. They can make matters worse. Do your due diligence. Be careful of people who want to rescue you. We are vulnerable and often seeking kindness or love or attention. This can often turn out to be a disaster, or we could find ourselves in really codependent relationships. Of course, the collateral damage is your case and the opportunity to get worse and not better. Other parents taking over your role as parent. I experienced this. Other mothers wanted to assume the role of mother because I must be incompetent. Financial drain using the wrong people, loss of time using the wrong support people. So the self-care is to do your due diligence. Be careful who you share with. Take time to trust. Use referrals. Be discerning about telling your story right off the bat, and have a profile in mind of the attributes important to you and the people that you want to support you and plead your case. Watch out for social media. People prey on vulnerable people. Insight number 5, be confident and exude self confidence. Have integrity and ability. The courts, teachers, and medical professionals can judge you. It is important to stay at your highest self to the world. This circles back again to self care. It is vitally important to take care of yourself, to show up in the midst of anger, grief, injustice. It's such a tall order, but it's critical. I would go to my therapist before and after court appearances, parent teacher meetings, ball games to be emotionally centered. I mentioned meditation above because it can shift your energy, calm you down, and center you. You must be emotionally stable, even with hand grenades being thrown at you, because so much is at stake here. I know that after about 4 years in the courts, I showed up so emotional. I was drained, and my children were in danger. My former husband was in a suit. He was stoic and unemotional, and he won cases. The judges do not like or tolerate emotional outbursts in their court. You may lose the case. Also, you can be labeled as unfit for parenting when that is apparently not so, because emotionally, you know your children are in danger. This was the hardest thing for me to manage. Find things that you can do that will allow you to show up as your best self, even when you're in despair. I lost a lot of traction in the courts, and now they use my case to teach other mediators and attorneys, because seeing that as person in a suit, professional and stoic, created the wrong picture of what was really happening. Don't do this. Emotional outbursts, unruly behavior in court or mediation, but we're in trauma response, and oftentimes we do freeze. Learn about trauma, learn about how it affects you so you can learn techniques to deal with it. The collateral damage is ruling is against you. You will be labeled, you'll be judged, you could have a loss of visitation or custody. So meditate a short time before appearances. Create mindful practices or rituals before having to go to court. Breathe, have exercise, read a fun book, beat a pillow, yell and scream, go for a walk, listen to affirmations, make a recording of yourself, motivating yourself. Listen to rock music or music that makes you happy. These are techniques before walking into a volatile situation. Insight number 6, mind your thoughts. Watch what you watch what you listen to. I know this for me. I was so affected by the violence on TV or watching things of injustice. I learned about traumas and the things that can trigger this and the things that personally triggered me. I believe that being a targeted parent is living with sustained trauma. I equated it with being in Vietnam for years. Know this. Learn how to release trauma. Go to some specialists. I began studying trauma. It affects everything in our body. Our cells retain it, and we are our thoughts. I did not know this all at the time. This is work I have done in my journey forward. Don't do this. Don't take what other parents say to heart. The other parent takes to heart, sorry, or their family members. This is vital. I remember a therapist saying, just because he says it so doesn't mean it's so. And I didn't even get it at the time. I would absorb it and I would live into it. Collateral damage is more loss of self and self-worth, not being your best self, living in addiction, lack of sleep, and illness. Please create self-care practices, things you can control. You can control your thoughts. I know at the beginning, it was just free flow of anger and worry and concern, but there's so much information now about thought and personal growth programs, learning how to manage your thoughts and emotions, breath work. Dancing works with trauma and changing the moment. NLP, yoga, meditation, communing in nature, getting a pet, working with therapists, connecting with others in support groups. Find alliances that can be there to support you when you have to appear. Insight number 7, take this seriously, and the sooner the better. Protect yourself. This can be life or death. Getting help for our children is so important. I fought for counseling for my daughters. I got it court ordered and still it was blocked. One of my daughters actually took her life at 15. This is serious. This is life or death. Children are committing suicide at younger and younger ages. Our children are acting out. They're self-harming. Just recently, a targeted parent was killed when he finally was awarded visitation for his children. That's the collateral damage. And self-care is looking for help, looking for support, and being available for your children. That leads me to insight number 8. Pay close attention to your children and have allies available. We have to pay attention to our children. We can get so caught up in the court cases, our pain, and the children that we're fighting for that sometimes we're not present for them because we're dealing with such serious issues to navigate. So pay attention what you can do as a parent from a distance. Show love no matter what, even when hate and anger is being, shown to you. Find alternative ways of showing your love. Our children are victims too. I had to learn about compassion and forgiveness because a lot of hate comes from our children. They are victimized and they are brainwashed and they're trying to survive the best they can in a precarious situation, and they can't always tell what the right thing to do is. And they're often threatened. They often exhibit acting out and false narratives to please a parent. I've recently found, as I said, forgiveness and compassion practices to do with other people, and it has really helped me walk this journey. Don't do this. Don't blame them. Don't take hateful actions and put them in no-win situations. Don't be passive aggressive. Don't take it lightly. Don't speak poorly of the other parent. Don't put them in harm's way. Don't always allow them to stay at other friends' houses. You lose touch with your children. Collateral damage is loss of life, self-harm, or addiction. Beware of trying to fix it with money. You can experience financial hardship and ruin, as well as modeling inappropriate beliefs about money. Self-care, always come from the heart and show the face of love. Send things, message, letters, make cards, create situations where you are present for them. Develop a compassion and forgiveness practice. Find activities that foster open communication or self-expression. Plan activities like hiking, vision boards, camping, or road trips that allow for reliance on each other and space for self-expression. Speak of your feelings. Listen more than talk. I want to end with this. I often think of Mother Mary and having to watch her son be persecuted and the fine line she had to walk when she knew the truth. Like we watch our children slowly brainwashed and as we are slowly erased. The words, "Forgive them, Father, for they do not know what they do," has given me solace over these years. They do not know the harm they are doing for us, towards us, and for our future generations. Thank you so much for allowing me this few moments in time. I'm Barbara Drtina again with Wellness Matters, You Matters, and I hope that you glean something from my talk.